The Raiders are being pushed to sign a Super Bowl champion and former second-round pick. On top of that, the team is being named as one of the top landing spots for a big play cornerback before training camp. Then, just when nobody expected it, a former first-round player may be running out of time in Las Vegas. Now, the pressure is building on John Spytek over a move the fan base is not going to like one bit. There's a spot on this defense that feels exciting and uncomfortable at the same time. You look at the young pieces, you look at the athleticism, you look at the upside, and part of you wants to believe the Raiders already have enough back there. But then the other part of you, the part that has watched this team get burned in the secondary too many times, starts asking one simple question. Do they need one more grown man in that room before camp makes the answer obvious? That's where the name Taylor Rapp comes into the conversation, and honestly, I get why people are connecting him to Las Vegas. This is not some wild fantasy football kind of idea. This is about a veteran safety who has played real snaps in real games with real pressure attached to them. Rapp came into the league as a second-round pick with the Los Angeles Rams back in 2019, and he started 17 games for the team that won the Super Bowl in 2021. That matters. You can't fake that kind of experience. You can't teach a young defensive back what that room feels like in January unless somebody beside him has actually lived it. Now, let's be fair. Rapp is not being talked about like some perfect, no-risk signing. He dealt with a season-ending knee injury last year, and for the first time in his career, he finished a season without an interception or a pass breakup. That's not nothing. And when you hear that missed tackle rate, that 21.2% number from last season, yeah, that makes you pause. Because Raiders fans already know what it feels like when a safety takes a bad angle and suddenly a normal play becomes a backbreaker. But here's why this still makes sense to me on a one-year prove-it type deal. The Raiders don't need him to come in and save the whole secondary. They need stability. They need insurance. They need a traditional safety who can let Jeremy Chinn and Traden Stukes move around the defense without everything feeling forced. Stukes is the fascinating one here. Matt Robinson talked about his movement skills, his fluidity, his ability to play nickel, both safety spots close to the line, deep, even man coverage. That's not a normal rookie profile. That's a chess piece, and when you have a chess piece, you don't want to trap him in one square because the roster around him is thin. Dalton Johnson is another young guy they clearly like because of his physicality and attitude, and that matters in this building. That fits the Raiders. But young defensive backs learn hard lessons in this league. The quarterback finds you. The coordinator isolates you. The speed changes fast. So bringing in Taylor Rapp would not be an admission that the young guys aren't ready. It would be the opposite. It would be the Raiders saying, we like these kids enough to protect their development instead of throwing them into chaos. And that's where the decision gets tricky. Do you trust the upside, or do you add the veteran now before one injury turns a promising room into a weekly problem? The cornerback room might be even harder to read because there is talent there, but there is also a lot of what-if energy floating around. You can talk yourself into this group if you want to. Darian Porter has a role. Eric Stokes is expected to be a key piece. The Raiders have young defensive backs turning heads, and there's a new defensive coordinator in Rob Leonard who clearly wants more impact from the secondary. But when a defense finishes with only 8 interceptions, fans don't forget that. Coaches don't forget that. Front offices definitely don't forget that. That's why the name Trevon Diggs gets people's attention, because love him or question him, the man has made big plays in this league. We're talking about a 2-time Pro Bowler, a 2021 first-team All-Pro, and a corner who once felt like a turnover waiting to happen. That version of Diggs was terrifying. Quarterbacks tested him and paid for it, but the problem is the league is not paying for memories. The ACL injury from 2023 changed the conversation around him, and he has not really felt like that same guy since that monster season. So when people bring him up as a Raiders target, I don't think this is about blindly chasing a name. This is about timing, price, and concern. And the concern has a name too, Jermad McCoy. Not concern because he isn't talented. Concern because he might be so talented that you want to be extra careful with him. The Raiders got him in the 4th round of the 2026 draft because questions about the longevity of his right knee pushed him down boards, even though a lot of people viewed him like a potential first-round player. That is the kind of pick that can make a front office look brilliant, but only if they handle it correctly. Rob Leonard said McCoy jumps out in individual drills because of how explosive he is. Clint Kubiak said the team wants him spending a lot of time with Guerrero so that when he hits training camp, they have full confidence in him. That tells me the Raiders know exactly what they have. They also know they cannot rush it just because fans are excited. And that is where Diggs becomes interesting, but only under the right conditions. If he is willing to come in on a veteran minimum type deal around that $1.3 million range, now we can talk. If there's an injury during camp, now we can talk. If McCoy's progress is slower than expected, now it gets real. But John Spytek cannot get emotional just because a recognizable name is sitting out there. That's how teams get trapped paying for the old version of a player instead of the current one. The upside is obvious. Diggs could give this defense a ball hawk, someone who changes possessions, someone who brings swagger. The downside is just as obvious. If the athletic burst is not all the way back, and if the consistency is still shaky, then you are adding another question to a room that already has enough of them. So for now, the spotlight goes right back to McCoy, because if that rookie is right, if that knee holds up, if the talent flashes when the pads come on, the Raiders may not need to chase anybody. But if camp starts sending a different message, that phone call could get very interesting fast. Now we flip to the offense, and this is where things start getting uncomfortable for some names that fans have been rooting for. Because the receiver room does not have one obvious superstar sitting at the top, but it does have bodies. It has speed. It has youth. It has players fighting for the same handful of roles. And when a room looks like that, somebody with a name people recognize is usually the one standing too close to the edge. That brings us to Philip Dorsett, and I know some fans hear former first-round pick and still wonder if there's something left there. I understand it. Speed always tempts people. Experience always sounds useful in July, but the reality is harsh. Dorsett was with the Raiders last season and did not play a single snap, not one, and now he's 33 years old in a wide receiver room where everybody else is 27 or younger. That's not just a detail, that's the whole problem. The Raiders are trying to figure out what the younger group can become, and carrying an older receiver who has not recently contributed on offense feels hard to justify unless he is clearly separating from the pack. Sam Warren of The Athletic predicted Dorsett among the roster cuts, and that prediction makes sense when you look at how the room is shaping up. The Raiders didn't go make some major receiver splash. They brought in Jalen Naylor, and then they basically said, let's see what these guys do with real opportunities. Trey Tucker is still in the mix, Jack Beck is in the mix, Dante Thornton Jr. is in the mix, young players like Shedrick Jackson and 6th-round rookie Tommy Mellett-Benson are trying to force the coaches into difficult choices, and that's where the roster battle gets emotional. Because Shedrick Jackson is not just another name to fans. He is Bo Jackson's nephew. Everybody wants that story to work. Everybody wants to see him break through in the silver and black. He has shown flashes, and apparently he had a strong OTA stretch, but there's a difference between flashes in shorts and winning a roster spot when the numbers get tight. He could absolutely be a practice squad candidate, but the active roster is another fight entirely. Then there is Donnie Thornton Jr., and this is the one that has a little sting to it, because physically he looks like the kind of receiver you dream on. Long speed, size, vertical ability, that Tennessee go-route reputation, but at some point traits have to become trust. Lincoln Kennedy put it bluntly on the Locked On Raiders squad show when he said the addition of Naylor might be writing on the wall for Thornton if he does not pick it up, and he's not wrong. If Naylor brings speed, Trey Tucker brings speed, and Thornton is only being used as another vertical-only guy, then what separates him? That's the question Clint Kubiak has to answer with this offense. Can Thornton develop into more than a straight-line threat? Can he win intermediate routes? Can he be trusted when the play is not just run fast and hope the safety bites? Because if he cannot, the Raiders may look at him and see overlap instead of value. And in a young receiver room, overlap is dangerous. Benson getting reps as a returner matters. Special teams matter. Versatility matters. That is how final roster spots are won. This is not just about who looks better on a highlight clip. This is about who helps on game day when only a certain number of jerseys are active. So yes, Dorsett feels like the obvious veteran on the chopping block. Jackson has to fight uphill. Thornton has been put on notice, and once camp starts, this receiver room might turn into one of the most ruthless battles on the entire roster. Now we get to the story that no Raiders fan can hear without feeling something in their chest. Because all the roster talk, all the camp battles, all the free agent ideas, they matter. But when the conversation turns toward the heart of this team, everything changes. You already know where this is going. Max Crosby trade speculation is back. And I hate even saying it out loud because there are certain players who feel bigger than a transaction. Max is one of them. He is not just an edge rusher wearing a Raiders jersey. He is the emotional temperature of this franchise. He is the guy who plays like the building is on fire. He is the guy fans point to when they want proof that somebody still understands what the shield is supposed to feel like. But this is the NFL, and the NFL does not care about feelings when a team starts losing. That is why the speculation is not going away, especially after the Myles Garrett trade to the Los Angeles Rams opened the door for people to start asking what an elite pass rusher is worth. Austin Bundy of Fansided floated 2 trade ideas, one with the Philadelphia Eagles and one with the Chicago Bears. And even though a deal before the season does not feel likely, the trade deadline is the danger zone. If the Raiders stumble early, the noise gets louder. If Crosby proves that left knee is behind him and he looks like himself again, the phone calls start coming. The Eagles' idea would send a 2028 first-round pick, a 2027 second-round pick, and linebacker Nolan Smith Jr. to Las Vegas for Crosby. On paper, that is a serious package. Philadelphia is chasing another Super Bowl window, and a front with Crosby, Jalen Carter, and Jonathan Greenard would be disgusting for opposing offenses. Howie Roseman loves aggressive swings, and from their side, you can understand why they would at least ask. Then there's the Bears' proposal, a 2027 first-round pick, a 2028 third-round pick, and defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo. Chicago pairing Crosby with Montez Sweat would be a nightmare in the NFC North, especially if they believe they are one playmaker away from pushing into that true contender tier. Again, from their perspective, it makes sense. But from the Raiders' side, that is where this gets painful. Last season, Crosby played 935 defensive snaps. He had a 79.7 overall PFF defensive grade, 53 pressures, 10 sacks, 31 hurries, 12 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and 46 solo tackles against the run. That is not just production, that is identity. So when people say, well, if the Raiders are rebuilding, maybe you take the picks. I get the football logic. I really do. John Spytek has to think long term. He has to consider value. He has to be honest if the season collapses. But there is a cost to trading the one player who makes the fan base believe the standard still exists. You do not replace Max Crosby with a draft pick. You hope a draft pick becomes someone who matters half as much. That is the difference. And if the Raiders are somehow in playoff contention, if this team surprises people, if the defense starts hitting and the offense finds rhythm under Kubiak, then this whole conversation dies instantly. Nobody calls, nobody listens, Max stays where he belongs. But if the losses stack up early, every national outlet is going to circle this story like sharks, and Raider Nation is going to have to sit there hearing trade packages for the soul of the defense until the deadline finally passes. That's why this offseason feels so tense. It is not just about adding a safety, taking a flyer on a corner, or deciding which receiver survives cut-down day. It is about whether this new Raiders build has enough direction to protect the pieces that matter most. I want to believe this team surprises people. I want to believe Max Crosby stays untouchable because the silver and black are winning meaningful games. But belief has to turn into proof. So tell me where you stand, Raider Nation. Would you add Rapp or Diggs? Who gets cut at receiver? And is there any trade package that would make you even listen on Max? Because for me, that one still hits different. Just win, baby.